Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be going over how to make this bell sleeve mesh shrug. If this video seems familiar, that is because I did already post one of this a few weeks ago, but I wasn't super content with just the quality of the filming. The background gave a big glare and the yarn was a little bit hard to see. So I've improved my recording arrangement a little bit and it should be a much better video this time. I've got some better lighting and a darker color yarn so you guys should be able to see it properly. This shrug is a very beginner friendly project. The only crochet techniques that you need to know is how to chain, how to make a double crochet, and how to slip stitch. That's it. So let's get into the tutorial. For the materials, you are going to need some yarn, of course. I'll be using the Caron 1 pound, which is a weight for acrylic. You'll also need a crochet hook. I'll be using a 5mm. I do have a fairly loose tension though, so if you have a tighter tension, you may want to size up a bit. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a darning needle. Our first round is going to be made up of foundation double crochets, and this will need to be the width of your top. So you'll want to make this wide enough that it can comfortably fit over your bust or from armpit to armpit, usually whichever measurement is bigger. If you prefer not to do a foundation double crochet, you can do chains instead and then work a double crochet back into it. To do a foundation double crochet, we're going to start with a slip knot and chaining 2. So I've got my chain 2, then we are going to yarn over and insert our hook into that very first chain we made. I prefer to go into the back bump. So we're going to insert our hook into that back bump of the chain. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through that back bump. Now we've got 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through the first loop so that we have 3 loops left. This is going to make the bottom of the double crochet. Then we're going to finish it off like a regular double crochet. So we'll yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is a double crochet. It doesn't look like much yet, but as we build it up, it'll be a little bit clearer. This side is the bottom of our double crochet. This side is the top. And then we've got a chain 2 on the side. Now to build it up, we're going to do the same thing, but going to the base of our previous double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert into both loops of the base. So I've got both loops on my hook there. Yarn over and pull through that stitch. Pull up a little bit, that way our top loop and our bottom loop are around the same height. Yarn over and pull through 1 to create the bottom of the stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 to complete our second double crochet. So now you should be able to see it a little bit clearer. We've got 2 double crochets here in our chain 2 start. So we have 2 clear stitches on the top, and same on the bottom, we've got 2 clear stitches, and then our chain 2 on the side there. So we're going to keep building it up like this, working vertically off of each stitch. So we're going to yarn over, insert into the bottom of the stitch, yarn over, pull through, pull up a little bit. That pull up is important because you want to make sure that your stitch is even on both sides and not too tight or too loose on one side. Then yarn over, pull through 1 to create the bottom, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And there we have 3 double crochet. Now you're going to continue adding double crochets until this is the width that you'd like it to be. Alright, here's where I'm at with my base row. I ended up going with 46 stitches. For our second row, we're going to be working just the regular mesh stitch. We're going to start by chaining 1 and then turning our work. And the mesh stitch is going to start with a double crochet, and I prefer to do this with a standing double crochet. If you don't like doing a standing double crochet, you can just chain 3 instead, and that will count as your double crochet in your chain 1 space. To make a standing double crochet, we're just going to be stacking 2 single crochets. So we're going to start with a single crochet in that first spot. So inserting our hook, yarn over and pull up, yarn over and pull through both loops. That's our single crochet. Then we're going to insert our hook into that front post, that loop on the front of the stitch. So I'm just going to pick up that 1 loop. Then we'll yarn over, pull through that loop, and pull up a little bit. Now we have 2 loops on our hook again. Yarn over and pull through both loops, and that creates our standing double crochet. Then we are going to chain 1. We're going to skip 1 space and then do a double crochet in the second stitch. And that is going to be our pattern until the end of the row. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Coming up to the end of the row, you should be ending off with 2 stitches so that you can do your last chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet. These mesh rows are always going to start and end on a double crochet. This is what you should be looking like after row 2. For row 3, we're going to do the same thing. Start with a chain 1 and flip our work. We're going to repeat the mesh stitch, so we'll start with our standing double crochet or stacked single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet. Our double crochets are always going to line up and be on top of each other, and our spaces will line up as well. So you're just going to repeat this to the end of the row, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. After row 3, we're going to repeat the mesh stitch 1 more time, so we have a total of 3 rows of mesh. So we'll start by chaining 1 and turn our work. Start with our standing double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet, and then repeat till the end of the row. Now that we've got our 3 rows of mesh, we're going to go and do a row of solid double crochet to start creating our pattern. We'll start with a chain 1 and turn our work. Then we'll be doing a standing double crochet in the first stitch. And then we're going to do a double crochet in every space and every stitch. If you want to, you can do the double crochet in the actual chain, but I find it's faster just to do it in the actual space. So we're just going to insert into that space and do a double crochet, and then do a double crochet in the actual stitch. And we're just going to repeat this until the end of the row, and you'll have a double crochet in every space and every stitch. And this is what we're looking like at the end of row 5. We've got a double crochet in every space and every stitch. So now you can see our repeat. We start off with our foundation double crochet, and then 3 mesh, 1 solid. And then you can repeat this 3 mesh, 1 solid as many times as you want until your shirt is the length that you'd like it to be. I usually repeat it 2 to 4 times depending on the size of the top I'm going to do. For this one, I'm going to do 3 repeats total, so I'll repeat this section 2 more times. Alright, so I'm back with my front panel. As you can see, I ended up doing 2 repeats instead of the 3 because this gets me to the right length that I want my front to be. The length of this panel is going to equal out half of the size that your sleeves will be. So if you're not sure how long your front panel should be, you can grab a measuring tape and measure the largest point of your arm, divide that by 2, and that's how long your panel should be. So let's say your arm measurement was 18 inches, your front panel should be 9 inches long. This one is going to be a size small, so having the 2 repeats gets the perfect length for this one. Moving on to the neckline, what we're going to be doing is placing double crochets at the beginning and end of the piece and then chaining in between to create that neckline. I prefer mine to have a really wide neckline so that it hangs almost off the shoulders, but you can make your neckline as thin or as wide as you want it to be. For mine, I'm going to start with 6 double crochet. I'll be chaining all the way to the end and then ending it off with 6 double crochet. I find using a stitch marker is helpful at this point so that it's a little bit clearer where your chains are going to start and end. So I'm just going to count back 6 from the end. So that's going to be the section of double crochet at the end. So to start on the neckline, we're going to start with just a chain 1 and flipping our piece as usual. and then I'm going to do my 6 double crochet. If you want yours to have a smaller neckline, you'll be doing more, of course, but I'm just going to do my 6, starting with my standing double crochet, of course. So I've got my 6 double crochet, and then I'm going to need to chain the same amount of stitches I have here all the way up to my stitch marker. I am going to actually size up my hook for this chain just to make sure it's not too tight, because I don't want my neckline to scrunch in on one side. So I'm using a 5mm for my piece. I'm going to use a 6mm just for this chain part. And you can either just count the amount of stitches you have here, or take your total number and subtract it by the amount of double crochets on both sides. So I have a total of 47 stitches. I'm doing 6 on each side, so 47 minus 12 is 35. Okay, I've got 35 chains, so I'm switching back to my 5mm. And then I'm just going to go to where my stitch marker is, which is 6 stitches from the end, and I'm going to place a double crochet there. And then I'm just going to finish it off with the other double crochets. So that is what the row is looking like. We've got double crochets on both sides, and then our chain space in the middle, and that is our neckline. For the next row, we are going to do just double crochets in every single stitch and every chain across. So starting with our chain 1 and turning our piece, we'll do a standing double crochet in the first stitch, and then double crochet across your previous ones. Once you reach the chains, we're going to be double crocheting into each individual chain. I prefer to work into the back bumps so that it leaves the other side of the chain visible and creates a more finished look. So this is already facing me with the back bumps, so I'm just going to pick up that very first back bump and do my double crochet there. And then just continue along in the back bump of each chain. Alright, I just put my last double crochet in the last chain, so I'm just going to finish off the row by working into the double crochets from the previous row. Once this row is done, you should go back and count these stitches to make sure you do still have the same stitch count. It's easy to accidentally add or lose a chain, so doing a stitch count is an important thing. So there we go, that row is done. And as you can see, because I increased my hook size for the chain, it's not pulling it at all, which is great. Now what we're going to do is just repeat this mesh row and solid row until your back panel matches your front panel. So you'll do your 3 of mesh and then your 1 solid for as many times as you did for your front. I'm going to do this off camera and meet you back once my back panel is done. Alright, I have finished my back panel. So you can see we have our front panel, neckline, back panel, and then when we fold it together it looks like this. So we've got the main part of our shrug done, and we can now connect it and start working on our sleeves. If you really like the length of your top but it's not long enough to fit your arms, we can add some extra chains when we connect the sides, so that way it's wide enough to go around your arms but not making the front part any longer. So to make the sleeve, we're going to take our one end, connect it to the other side, and we're going to slip stitch right there. If you want to add any extra chains, you can just chain the length that you need and then slip stitch. So we're just going to grab the very top of the other side, making sure I'm going into both loops of that stitch, and then we will slip stitch. So now we have it connected and we can start working on our arms. We'll be doing them the same way that we did our front and back panel, where we do our starting row of double crochet, Then we start the pattern of 3 mesh, 1 solid until we reach the length that we want it to be. This one is going to be worked in joined rounds instead of rows back and forth. We're going to start with a chain 1, and then we're going to place a double crochet in the very first stitch. So we're just going to insert and do our standing double crochet. Then we're going to go around and do a double crochet in every single space. There's no specific stitches here because we're working into the side of our rows, so I tend to do 2 double crochet per row, and that keeps it pretty even for me. So I've got my first one here, which is at the top of my double crochet. I'm going to put the second one here in the base of the double crochet. So that is 2 stitches for the 1 row. And then I'm just going to repeat this around the entire row. And I just kind of do this by feel of where it makes sense to put them in. I always try to go into 2 loops. So I pick up 2 loops as I find that makes it a little bit more secure. And again, aiming for 2 stitches per row. This helps because we want our stitch count to be an even number at the end, so that way our pattern will work properly. So just keep trying to get 2 stitches per row. Alright, so I'm just coming back to the beginning of my row. You can see we have a solid double crochet row. Before I close off the round, I'm going to count my stitches and make sure I have an even amount. So I've got 40 stitches, which is perfect. We are going to end this round by doing a tight slip stitch to our starting stitch. So we're just going to insert into the very top of that stitch, place a slip stitch, and then tighten it. And you do this just by pulling up on your hook and then pulling the excess yarn. Now for round 2, we're going to start our mesh row. So we're going to chain 1, do our standing double crochet in that same spot. Then we will chain 1, skip a stitch, and double crochet. And repeat this until you get back to the beginning of the round. So I'm almost done my round, and you can see we have 1 stitch left. So I'm going to do my chain 1, and then we're going to end this round with a tight slip stitch to our first stitch. And that is what our mesh round is looking like. You can see we have the beginning of a sleeve here. If you haven't tried your piece on, I would definitely recommend trying it on at this point. Make sure the neckline fits great, and make sure that these sleeves are a comfortable width for you. Again, if they're too small, all you have to do is just add some more chains before you connect the front and back panel, and then you can make your sleeves as big as you need them to be. At this point, all you're going to do is repeat the pattern of 3 mesh and 1 double until you reach the length that you want it to be. This video is focused on the big ruffly bell sleeves, and to do that, we're going to start our increases right around the middle of our forearm. So we're just going to repeat this until we reach right around the middle of our forearm, and then we'll start on our increases. Alright, so here's where I'm at with my sleeve. I ended up doing a total of 6 repeats to get it to the length that I wanted it to be, and now we can start on our increases. Our increases are going to last for a total of 2 repeats. I find that gets us a very big bell sleeve with a nice amount of ruffle. But again, if you want yours to be bigger, you can start at 1 repeat earlier. Same if you want your sleeves a little bit smaller, you don't want them to be as big of a bell sleeve, you can just start at 1 repeat later and only do 1 repeat of the increases. For the actual increases, all we're going to be doing is increasing the amount of chains we have in each space. So for our normal rows, we skip 1 space and we chain 1. For our first row of repeats, we are going to chain 2, but only skip 1 space. And you should be ending off on a solid double crochet row after you finish the length of your sleeves, and the increases are going to start on our mesh rows. So we're going to start with a chain 1 and do a standing double crochet as normal. Then we are going to chain 2, but only skip 1 spot, and then place our double crochet. For all of these rows, even the increase rows, the double crochets are still going to line up and our spaces are still going to line up. The spaces are just going to slowly get wider. So we're going to chain 2, skip 1, double crochet, and then repeat this until you get back to the beginning of the round. So I'm just coming to the end of my round. I did my last double crochet and we've got 1 space left. So I'm just going to chain 2 and then slip stitch to our starting double crochet. We'll start the next row as normal with a chain 1 and a standing double crochet. Then for this round, we are going to chain 3 and then skip our chain 2 space. So we're chaining 1, 2, 3, skip our space, double crochet on top of the previous one. So you can see our spaces are starting to get bigger. We've got our normal ones here, first increase and second increase, and then just repeat this, chain 3, skip your space, double crochet. All right, I'm just finishing my round. I've got my chain 2 space, so I'm going to chain 3 and then slip stitch to our starting stitch. We'll start with our chain 1 and double crochet. For this round, we are going to do a chain 4 and then skip our chain 3 space. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, skip our space, double crochet on top of the previous double crochet. So again, chain 4, skip your space, double crochet, and repeat to the end of the round. And we're at the end of this round. We've got our chain 3 space, so I'm just going to chain 4 and then slip stitch to our starting stitch. Since we've done 3 of our mesh, our next round is going to be a solid double crochet round. I prefer not to do any increases on the double crochets and instead do just the same amount of stitches that there are in the previous row. So we're going to start with a chain 1 and our standing double crochet. Then we've got a chain 4 space, so I'm going to put 4 double crochet in that space. And you'll see I'm not going into the actual chains, I'm just going into the space. So we've got our 4 double crochet, then I'll do a double crochet on top of my previous one, and then we're just going to continue this for the whole round, 4 in our chain 4 space, 1 on top of our previous one. I'm just finishing up the round. You can see I have my 4 double crochets in the chain 4 space. I'm just going to end off with my slip stitch. The next round is going to be another mesh round. We'll start with our chain 1 and standing double crochet. This is an increase round, so we're going to do 1 more chain than we did in our previous increase. So we're going to do 5 chains and skip 4 spaces. So chain 5, and then we're going to skip 4 and do a double crochet in that 5th stitch. And you'll see that that one is lining up with the previous one still, and those spaces are still lining up. So chain 5, skip 4, double crochet, and repeat till the end of the round. I'm just coming up to the end of the round, so I'm going to end off with my chain 5, skipping our 4 double crochet, and then slip stitching to our starting stitch. And we'll start the next round as usual. For this round, we are going to chain 6 and then skip our chain 5 space. So chain 6, skip that whole space, double crochet on top of our previous double crochet, and then repeat until the end of the round. We're at the end of the round, so I'm just going to finish off with my chain 6 and then slip stitch to my starting stitch. Start the next round with our chain 1 and double crochet. This round we are going to chain 7 and skip our chain 6 space. So chain 7. Then we're going to skip that whole space, double crochet on top of our previous one. And then repeat that till the end of the round. I just reached my last space. I chained 7, so I'm going to skip that space and then slip stitch to end. And then we're going to do the very last round of our piece. If you wanted yours to have a longer increase section, you can always repeat this one more time. All you would need to do is just increase your number of chains for every increased row. So you would do your double crochet row, and then the following row you would chain 8 and skip 7. This row is going to be a solid double crochet row. We're going to start with our chain 1, double crochet. For the final row, I do like to add an extra double crochet in this section as I feel like it fills it out a little bit more, especially with it being the end of our piece. So I'm going to put 8 double crochet in this chain 7 space. And again, I'm going to go into the space and not into the actual stitches. So that is my 8 double crochet. As you can see, they are all bunched over to one side, so I like to just adjust them a little bit and have them more even. And then we're going to do a double crochet on top of our previous one. So that's what it's going to look like. If you find that putting one extra is still a little bit too loose, you can always put some more and make these parts as full as you want them to be. But you're just going to repeat that until you reach the end of the round. We are not going to end this one off with a slip stitch. We're going to instead end it off with an invisible closure. That way we don't have any weird bumps sticking out. We want it to be clear and seamless for where it starts and ends. So repeat this till the end of the round and then don't do a slip stitch. Alright, I am just finishing up my round, and this is where we would normally slip stitch to end, but we are not going to do that this time. Instead, we are going to pull up a very long loop. You want it to be long enough that you can easily weave the end in. Then we're going to grab our scissors and snip this loop at the top. This is going to leave you with 2 different threads. One of them is your working yarn, which is attached to your ball, so you can just pull that out. And then you've got 1 thread left. Now we're going to grab our darning needle and thread this needle. And we're going to use it to close off our round. We're going to do this by replicating one of our regular stitches so that you can't tell where the round starts or ends. So we've got our first stitch here. That's our first one of the round. We are going to skip that first one and put our needle in through the second one. So we're going straight into that second stitch underneath both of our loops. And we're going to pull our yarn through. Then we're going to insert our needle back into the very last stitch where our yarn came out of. So we're going to go right down the center of it in between both of our loops. So right down the center and out the back. I go under the back loop of our stitch and the loop below it. And we're just going to pull our yarn through that. And then pull it tight. You don't want to pull it too tight, but tight enough that it replicates the same tension as the other stitches. So you can see from the top view it looks the same. From the front though, it's very loose. So what we need to do now is just flip it to the back and tie a knot to secure this. I grab onto that loop from the original stitch, pull it through, and then we're going to make a little knot here. I pull that tight, but not too tight, because again, we don't want to pull the top of our piece, but tight enough that it's secure. And then we can go in and weave in our end as normal. So I'm just going to weave my end in down until it reaches the base of this row. So I'm just at the base, and then I'm going to go back through a few loops of the stitches. You can do this as many or as little times as you need until it feels secure, and then we're going to do another knot, but we're going to do it by splitting our yarn in half. So our yarn is made up of 4 smaller threads. We're going to stick our needle inside of the thread and split it evenly in half. So that way there are 2 smaller threads, each made up of our 2 even smaller threads. Then we are going to thread 1/2 of it into our needle. And then we're going to go back through 1 loop away. So just insert our needle into that 1 loop, pull it through, and then we've got our 2 threads with 1 loop separating them, and then we can tie a very secure knot. You'll want to tie 2 to 3 knots and make them very tight, but make sure you don't pull this yarn too tight and accidentally snap it, because it is a little bit more breakable at this point, being thinner. Once you've got your knots done, we can then just snip off these ends. And there's our end all woven in, and that's what our sleeve is looking like. So you can see we have a really good amount of increase to get a good flare, and the double crochets at the end make a slight ruffle or almost scalloped edge. I like to sometimes just squish the stitches in towards the center, and it will really enhance that ruffle, but you can also spread them out and make it a little bit straighter. So now that we finished our sleeve, we just have to go back, connect the other side, and repeat this whole sleeve. We are going to need to attach a new piece of yarn since we don't have one currently. We're going to do this by making a slip knot with our new yarn. Then we're going to go down to the bottom, the very last stitch of our row, insert our hook, put the loop on our hook, and then pull it through that stitch. Then I just tighten it by pulling the cut end until it's a little bit tighter. Then we are going to slip stitch to join. If you needed to extend your arm and you have some chains, you'll do your chains first and then go over and slip stitch. So we're going to insert our hook just into that very last stitch, yarn over, and do our slip stitch and pull it tight. I'm just going to tie these 2 ends together to make it extra secure. And then you're just going to start your sleeves in the exact same way that you started the other one. You'll start with your chain 1 and then your standing double crochet, and then you're going to place 2 double crochets for each row. Once you finish your double crochets, you'll need to count the stitches and make sure that you have the same amount as you do on your other sleeve. Then you're just going to repeat your mesh rows for as long as you need, and then do your increase rows. Once you finish off your final row of your second sleeve, make sure you go back and weave in these ends, and then your piece is complete. Alright, so you should now have a beautiful shrug just like this one. I hope you guys are happy with the piece that you've made. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel as I post new videos every week. I've got a few other tutorials just like this one over on my channel, so make sure you check them out if you're interested in other beginner-friendly crochet techniques. I also have a bunch of written patterns available for purchase over on my Etsy, so make sure you check that out at CrochetMadeByEli. Again, thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you next week. Bye!